if you had the choice right now between doing revenue management for Soho or revenue management for, I'm not necessarily going to say the Deutsche Selection, but for a luxury hotel brand, what would you choose and why?
Well, easy question.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode here on the Smack Hospitality Cast. We hope you are all safe and well. This episode features Lukas Peter. He is the head of revenue management for the Soho House Group, and we picked his brain on the current status of revenue management in the hospitality industry, what the outlook might be for times post COVID-19, how the Soho House way of doing business differentiates them, and what the war between hotels and OTAs should really be looking like. Enjoy the show. Lukas, thank you very much for joining us on the show. Obviously in very let's say conflicting times, to say the least. If you were to summarize the last, let's say, 8 weeks or maybe 12 weeks of your working life with the revenue management of Soho House, give me the brief summary of what went down.
Well, a crazy roller coaster, really. We saw it coming. Well, not early, but we saw it coming from Hong Kong and Mumbai, and then Istanbul around January, that there's something bigger coming our way. But then I have to say, I mean, the way they unfolded, it was absolutely crazy, and at a pace I think no one would have ever expected. Um, I mean, all of a sudden we started closing sites in Europe. One day to the other, we closed everything in the UK. Same with the US, travel bans, and so on and so on. And all of a sudden, from one day to the other, the whole world of Soho House was at a standstill. So, yeah, a true roller coaster, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was very, very, very impressive to see
Yeah.
that.
If for someone, Lukas, for someone who's never heard of Soho House for whatever reason, not that we think that we have people like that listening to the show, but say we do, would you mind just briefly summarizing and also explaining a little bit, what you have with the members club side on the one hand, and then the overnights
Of
and in the houses on the other hand?
Of course. So Soho House is a private members club, dedicated to the creative industry. From entertainment to fashion, everything that involves creativity. And yeah, so we have members around the world. We have clubs around the world, and those clubs are member only places where you can just go. And if I say clubs, it's not like a nightclub. It's basically you know open floor bar, restaurants, rooftop pools, which is a signature of what we do. Um, Gyms, spas, workspaces, cinemas. So this is basically what Soho House is. So it's a very dedicated community. And yeah, the whole idea of Soho House is, to foster creativity in any kind of form, and a place where you can share ideas, connect with other members, and well, now also in a digital format. That was a huge change in the last few months. Yeah, so it's a very, very diverse company. We try to do everything in house, from the design of the houses, of the furniture, to events, to well, you name it, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is what Soho House is, really.
And there's an accommodation side to it as well, Lukas. I understand in most houses. Could you explain a thing or two about why, because it's a pretty unique choice to have a members club on the one hand side, which I imagine is a fairly unique business style, so to speak, and then kind of tapping into the hotel overnight accommodation market a little bit as well.
Absolutely. So if you look at Soho House, the whole company, I mean, the bedroom side, we call it bedrooms, is a small portion of the business, right? We have, so every house in every city has around, between 30 to, I don't know, 90 bedrooms roughly.
Mm-hmm.
And that is really, it's really coming from the location where the house is, if there's space for rooms or if not. But it's quite a crucial part of it, because our members, they travel, right? And we have a lot of houses in hubs, for example, LA, where the entertainment industry is. We have London entertainment as well, right? So those people travel, they travel around, and usually members, they stay with us. Um, so I think it was a natural decision to just incorporate rooms into a concept like Soho House, because people travel, people need to stay. Why not stay in house, right?
Yeah.
How many hotels and clubhouses do you have open today? Because I mean, I worked at Soho House. I did my F&B traineeship there,
Oh wow.
and there was a big vision always, like 20, 30 houses internationally. And I know that you guys have a lot of houses to date. Um, what was the expansion in the last few years, and where are you today? And can you give us a little projection? Where are there any new houses opening in the next
I
couple
can
of
tell you
years?
what's official, yeah, for sure. So we have 20 hotels, well, 20 houses with bedrooms around the world now. We have, don't quote me on that, I think around 30 clubs around the world. A lot of small houses or clubs where there's just not space to have bedrooms as well. Um, yeah, it was a crazy journey, I have to say. When I started, we had 11 hotels, and bit more than 2.5 years later, we have 20, and it's not stopping. I mean, if Corona would have happened now, and we would have three more this year, and yeah, around five more next year. So it's yeah, it's pretty crazy.
Is there any chance for you already to predict, Lucas, how that is going to change? Because I think that's a pretty interesting topic. So you said the pipeline was pretty stacked before Corona happened.
Mm.
I mean, I don't want to nail you on this now exactly as to when the next house is going to open, but is there a chance you see that any of these houses open this year that you had planned, or have you pushed everything away to the next year?
No, absolutely. I mean, the only restriction that we actually had was construction. I mean, you have to see Soho House as a whole. If you, as an owner, decide to move forward with a Soho House, this has a different objective than if you go ahead with, let's say, any other big brand, right? Your business mix is different. Your dependencies on groups or business traveler is different, right? So from that perspective, we didn't get a lot of backslash there. It was really just construction that couldn't
Okay.
continue. For example, the opening in Paris, for example, got delayed. Tel Aviv is slightly delayed. All those houses that should have opened this year, well, they're just being pushed forward a little bit. But I think for us, they will all still go ahead. From what I know now, they will still go ahead.
But do you see a difference between the typical clubhouses, or the clubhouses without bedrooms, and the clubhouses with bedrooms? Is there a difference in strategy, in focus, maybe, for you guys, or do you expect that, yeah, travel will stay a key part of your Soho House strategy?
Yeah, I mean, if we go ahead with bedrooms, usually we try not to cannibalize ourselves, right? I mean, we would probably not open a second house with bedrooms in Berlin, for example. So we quite specific on those aspects. So if there's a talk to open a new house with bedrooms, we make sure that there is a certain inflow of demand. And if we would not see the demand, we would reduce the amount of bedrooms that we would sell, right?
Mm.
So there's not a you cannot open the cupboard and take out concept A or B. It was very, very specific to where we open and how the whole environment looks like, really, which is
Yeah.
making it really interesting to work for a
Yeah.
company like that.
When you started, Lucas, obviously we've known each other for quite a while now, which is due to the fact that we studied together at university, and I remember you saying the last time we met that this whole Soho House experience for you in the revenue management was more or less building the revenue management of some sorts for the company. Can you take us a little bit on the journey of what was there when you arrived, and how it's kind of grown, and how even a company that doesn't necessarily solely focus on the overnight accommodation. Nowadays, just has to deal with things like revenue management and make sure they maximize the revenue where they can.
Absolutely. I mean, that was quite a journey, I have to say, because again, the company is founded on creativity, right? On doing things differently. And, they used to do some sort of revenue management back in the days. They had different rate structures and so on per houses, but it was never centralized, or no one was really looking at that in that much detail, which was not necessary because it worked, right? Basically, if you have a club, with 30 bedrooms, a flat rate will probably do, right?
Yeah.
People come and stay, that's it. But at one point, they got a certain scale, right? I mean, if you have around 500 bedrooms, there's a lot to optimize. And the challenge is definitely, how do you optimize something that is already running at almost 100% occupancy, right? So there was a big challenge in the beginning. So how do you tackle that problem? When I started, it was not that easy, because revenue management is something very, very corporate, right? And Soho House, we try to do everything that is not corporate. So it was hard to find a way to implement something that will work, that people will understand, that is easy, first of all. Because if you think about revenue management in a traditional sense, I mean, maybe you remember our classes that we had. I mean, all those words, those keywords and KPIs, and I don't know what, right? If you need to teach that to an organization, to people, it's a long journey, right? So the
Yeah.
main challenge was to make it simple and
Yeah.
really make an impact, right? Um, and my first project was Miami, so we started to implement
Not
different
the
rate
worst
strategy, right?
first project you could have possibly
Oh,
had, I would
definitely
imagine,
not,
right?
definitely
No,
not.
no,
No,
yeah,
no.
okay. Yeah.
Well, very interesting project, because the market is very dynamic there, and it's very seasonal as well. So if you take something where nothing was done before, and you just do something right, you will already see an impact, which was great.
Yeah, yeah,
So we had
yeah,
quite quick wins there. Um, and it was not about changing everything 180 degrees. It was really bit by bit. And also my teams, they started as receptionists and then worked in reservations, and they somehow came into the world of rooms reservations and revenue, and now they had to deal with this, right? So from
yeah,
my perspective as well, it was a lot of training, and it's still a lot of training,
yeah.
which is which is very rewarding, yeah. But it was quite a journey, I have to say.
So you started off with a specific revenue strategy by house. Did you now bring that together as a cluster revenue strategy or by region, or do you have a general strategy worldwide? How did you manage, or what revenue strategy did you put up?
So first of all, as I mentioned, we started with Miami, where we just implemented a dynamic pricing structure like any hotel would have. Um, and from there, when we saw, yeah, it actually works. We took that to all the other sites, bit by bit, because again, it involves a lot of training, and it's the whole commercial perspective you need to change if you implement a new pricing strategy, right? So in the beginning, it was really house specific, but now it's pretty much globally aligned on what we do and how we do it. I mean, there's of course restrictions on some sites, where, for example, some sites are members only, um, and so on and so on. So from that perspective, yeah, it's side by side, but in general, it's one global strategy that is aligned, and which was also important, because if you have 20 hotels, you need some kind of consistency, and also for the members, how you communicate this to them, right? You don't want to confuse
And
them.
so how frustrating is it now, looking at, you've been setting that up, different strategies and everything per house, and looking at all that, and now suddenly Corona impacts, and let's say there's no more benchmark in really forecasting demands and rates. How frustrating is it, and or what approach are you taking at the moment to kind of take revenue strategy in a post-COVID era?
Let me tell you, this is honestly, I mean, this is extremely frustrating. And the thing is, it's not just frustrating for yourself, it's also very, very frustrating for your teams because no one knows, right? No one has any idea what's going on, what's going to happen. You're not in control anymore. And it was very frustrating, and it was also well, to a certain extent quite emotional because you work on that for a whole year. You prepare, you always look at the next 3 4 months, and you're always on top of it, right? And also with your teams, like you're always on top of it, and all of a sudden in one day, as I mentioned before, everything falls apart, right? And yeah, you just need to honestly, I think I think that was actually the real challenge so far, is to how to adapt in a situation like that where you have zero experience in, and you don't know what to do. So for me, it was tough, but we have a lot of systems where we track the market, where we see what's going on, and I spoke with a lot of my colleagues. Have a very good mentor as well. So yeah, it's honestly, it's just taking it day by day, and I really had to learn again to every day you need to look at it from a fresh perspective. Otherwise, yeah, you cannot use just common practices anymore.
I don't want to jump too much in the system discussion, but has it changed also the task of a revenue manager, being from working with or not, yeah, quite automated systems based on historic data, to now actually giving more power again to the revenue manager and for your own judgment? Or do you mainly work, or can you still work a lot on data and automation?
Very, very good question. Had actually this discussion as well just recently with my boss. So I was always very against using a computer to tell us what to do. So we never had a revenue management system, and not having one, we do everything pretty manual. And we have a few tools, online tools where we still track the market, right? And but we take those bits of information and do it our own way, which works really, really well. And I have to say, especially right now, I could not rely on a computer system, because the computer system will tell me, hey, I see a little bit of demand, you need to put your prices up. But because I know this is not really influx in demand, right? I will not do that. So I think now it's much more, the power is going much more back to the people, really, because they know their environment, they know their hotel, they know what is possible. Um, which is great to see, really. I mean, it's a lot of gut feeling involved.
Lucas, tell me a little bit about some of the points, some of the waypoints that you've seen in the past 6 or 8 weeks, maybe during the COVID-19, during the peak of COVID-19, where you thought that was maybe a particularly positive sign or a particularly negative sign. I imagine when you heard that travel was globally banned and that most airports were shutting down or drastically reducing their flights, that was probably about the most negative waypoint you could have been facing, because it's what the majority of your accommodation overnight business is based on. Is there any waypoints already? Specifically looking at Asia, we had a gentleman on the show in the last episode, a GM from the Ritz Carlton in Hong Kong, who said, well, it's Asia is sort of past the absolute peak of what maybe was the COVID-19 crisis, and is on the way of slowly recovering. Do you see any positive signs yet, or are you still looking very specifically at it from your Soho House perspective? Are you still right there, slap bang in the middle of the crisis?
No, definitely not. I mean, I follow the whole market development quite closely, and yeah, the green sprouts in Asia, that was definitely a good sign. So you could tell, at least domestically, they're traveling again, and slowly it's coming back. Um, so I was very surprised to see, actually, since we opened a few sites again since last week, that we actually start picking up rooms again. We still lose a lot of rooms, but it balances out with some pickup, um, which is really, really good to see. We drive quite a strong. We drive. We try to the local members to stay, experience the house. This is really the
Mm-hmm.
strategy that we're driving now. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting to see that, already within Europe, people start slowly to travel again. Even so, we'll be opening Miami this week, hopefully, if everything goes to plan, really. But there's a lot of demand already, a lot of demand. So yeah, let's see.
Okay.
Saying that though, we're very specific. Yeah, I mean, we're
Yeah,
not
of
a
course. No, of
corporate
course.
hotel.
I get that. Which brings me to my next question. The beauty with having you on the show is the fact that you know the hotel side.
Yeah.
The very much classic hotel business. You've been with the Dorchester Collection and their revenue department for a while. If you had the choice right now between doing revenue management for Soho or revenue management for, I'm not necessarily going to say the Dorchester Collection, but for a luxury hotel brand, what would you choose and why?
Well, easy question. Always
Careful
would do
what
it
you
for Soho
answer.
House. That as well, yeah. No, definitely Soho House. I mean, I have to say, after the Dorchester collection, which was an amazing experience, and my ex boss is still a very close friend and mentor of mine, so I'm still connected to them. The reason why I left was because I wanted to do something different, a little bit more out of the box, and that's how
Mhm.
I eventually ended up at Soho House. And this is great because the hotel industry has always done things because they've been done a certain way for very long, right? And there's a few companies that do or want to do things differently, and Soho House is one of them. And if you come from a if you know the traditional way, sorry, um, you can take that and really make it different because you don't have that much baggage on it, right? You can actually, yeah, you can change the way they do things, and this is extremely rewarding. And I would never, well, well, never say never, right? But I would not leave Soho House if
Okay,
I,
I wasn't trying to suggest you or to lure you into that question, but I was building up for this. I was building up for the next question, then, Lucas. If you were still with the hotel business, is
yeah.
there any tip or any idea from the obviously intense market knowledge that you have, that you apply to Soho House now? And I fully realize that it's a slightly more hybrid and different concept. But if you think of your friends and colleagues in the hotels, what would you recommend? I mean, is the whole domestic travel, is it going to be the holy grail for the next 12 months, maybe even longer? Do you strongly believe in that? What's your take on that?
Yeah, it's difficult because if you run a 200 rooms hotel in London, right, there's 100 others that have exactly the same and the same product. You don't really differentiate. So to fill that just with domestic, well, good luck. That's not going to happen.
Yeah,
So for the next 12 months, honestly, I don't see a really bright future for the hotel industry.
But
Small hotels, boutique hotels, resorts, they might do well, but everything in the city,
it's going to be
it's
tough.
going to be tough. Yeah.
Yeah.
but do you also see a lot of hotels actually trying to copy now the membership kind of I don't know, feeling where you actually they try to, push staycation, people coming to the hotel even when they come from the same city, which is actually already something which
Mhm.
Soho House with your memberships you've always been doing. Do you actually see quite a lot of hotels now maybe jumping on that trend and trying to copy a lot of things which you guys do?
I'm sure. I mean, in the end, right? The question is as well, uh, is the member club the new loyalty program, right? If you think about it that way. So I think a lot of hotels try to, or hotel companies try to get into that space. I know from a few companies that they worked on those concepts for the last few years, but it's very difficult to build something like that will last and that is very strong because why would you pay a membership, right? That is always the question. Why would you spend money to spend more money, right? So there needs to be something. And a lot of hotels, they're just hotels, really. There's nothing too much to it or around it. So yeah, I'm sure other hotels, well, I know other hotels are looking into that.
And especially looking at hotels taking maybe some aspects from the membership, but also now taking the perspective of Corona and all having more distance, um, bringing as you said, people have to, yeah, be ready to pay a membership fee. How do you see the future of the membership world? You know, people normally pay money so that they come to a club to network, to eat together, to drink together. Do you think that this will stay the same, or do you see the concept of membership clubs also evolve? What's your projection for the next, I don't know, 12 months, but also a bit more long-term vision?
Yeah, I think what we see now, where we're lucky again, is that our member clubs are private spaces. So especially in a period like now, I would rather go to one of our clubs than any other restaurant or bar, because I know the environment is a little bit more controlled, if you know what I mean. Um, so I think this will actually have a good impact on members club, because people will realize, yeah, hey, I can get, for a little bit more, I can get some exclusivity. Not only exclusivity in terms of, how should I say that, not in an elitist way. You know what I mean? It's more in a,
Yeah,
well, I can get some privacy. I can. Well, I'm with like-minded people, or with people I kind of like trust, because you have a similar mindset, right? And I think
yeah,
this is something that will definitely drive this whole space in terms of private member clubs, and any really anything that is a bit more exclusive. Again,
yeah.
not in a elitist way, just
No,
more.
no, no, no. I understand what you mean, though. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Lucas, if you know, you're a revenue management expert, so we have to pinpoint you on this one. I'm sorry, man. But tell me a little bit of how revenue management is going to develop. I've heard, and if you read the news, you know, everyone. I think every hospitality news platform at the moment, it thinks they're the proven experts when it comes to predictions. I've heard all predictions from the battle with OTAs is on. Now is the time for hotels to take back control over their prices. To we are as dependent on them as we've ever been. To the whole revenue management world is going to change because we have to redefine prices post Corona. I've pretty much heard from the world going, breaking down because of revenue management, to revenue management being the savior of hospitality. I've heard it all. How is it real? What's it really going to be like? I mean, I'm sure we agree that Corona is going to have an impact on the way revenue management is done.
Mm.
Probably most of us would agree on that. But if you look at some of the recovery scenarios now that you've seen already, and I'm sure you've simulated one or two things already as well, can you give us at least some insight, without sharing all of your tricks up your sleeve, of how you think things will continue specifically for your sector of the business, which is revenue management?
Whew. Yeah, that's a good question. Thanks for that. Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting to see in the next the next half year, I would say, how all those properties that heavily rely on systems that do the job for them, how they will perform and what the systems will actually do. We see it in a few markets. For example, I think I can name that, in Amsterdam, for example, in our concept, where where we are usually very well aligned with other hotels, and everyone is very much around the same price for the same product, right? How it should be, really. And all of a sudden, they're all over the place. A hotel that sold a bedroom for 400 euros pre-corona sells it now for 100.
Mm, yeah.
And I think what you mentioned before, with the whole battle with OTAs and so on and so on and so on. I think it's time where revenue management is becoming a little bit more transparent, and
Mm,
I guess also fairer, because honestly, a lot of people, excuse my French, but a lot of hotels, they take the piss, right? I mean, if there's
yeah.
demand, if the demand is high, they go so insanely high, it's not justifiable anymore. And I think those times are over. So that will show in the next few months, really.
Yeah. What do you
Curious,
tell? What do
curious
you
to
tell
see
a hotel?
myself.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we can reconnect for another episode and see how it goes. Yeah.
Please.
What do you tell a hotel like that, Lucas? So the example that you've just given with Amsterdam, I'm sure that if we look at three other cities, we would find similar examples. Is that a smart thing to do at the moment? Is the play maybe to just literally dump your rates to a quarter or a third or whatever, and try and get whatever you can? or is that gonna have? I mean, I guess it's difficult to predict, but if I had to force you to a prediction, or is that long term gonna make you suffer in your overall rates?
Yeah. Discussion we had so many times, and I'm having that literally almost every day with my teams. I think the keyword here is price integrity.
Yeah,
You know, if if you set a price, right, you can say, okay, look, during a normal period, that room is worth, I don't know what, 100 to 200 euros. Yeah. You
yeah,
can say, okay, high demand. Okay, yeah, I can flex that a little bit, right? I can go maybe to 250, 300, something like that. But in the end, you try to stay around your, what is a fair price? Um, and for us, really, we're still very consistent with our prices. Yes, of course, we lower prices to be attractive, to get, to get some demand at least that is there. But then we will never ever slam our prices, because it's just not it's not realistic. I mean, in the end, you still have your cost. You still need to cover your
yeah,
cost, need to pay your employees and so on. Well, what I found, and on that note, what I found very interesting is that pre-COVID, we really lowered the prices quite a bit, just in order to fill the rooms, because not selling a room on one night doesn't need a housekeeper, doesn't need a front of house staff. If we can sell that room, at least we give someone a job. If we can cover the cost, fine, let's do it. That was kind of like the strategy before a little bit. But now it's really be consistent, because once you drop your prices crazily low, yeah, it takes years to recover.
yeah, yeah.
But it's a fine
And
line. It's very, very
Ha
difficult.
have you seen a bit of a different also booking pattern now with the first bookings or pickups coming in between members and externals?
Yeah, much more members actually, which is something that we target anyway. Um,
And,
yeah, that was interesting to see. I mean, especially on the
and
weekends, we start seeing quite a good pickup from members.
and you guys work anyways with a lot of family and friends and member rates. Is that something in your revenue strategy where you say, okay, our commercial rates to the outside world, we don't drop them too much, but maybe, just to get new members in or getting members to travel more, that you do hidden promotions specifically to the members? Is that something which you guys looked at, or?
Well, we looked at that when I started, how the whole discounting, the whole tier system works behind room rates and members and non-members and friends and family and so on. But we decided that we're going to be very transparent and very clear on that. We don't do any hidden promotions or any hidden things really. So the members, they get their discount of the public rate. The friends and family gets the discount of their public rates, which was initially difficult to manage, and it's difficult to forecast now. But I mean, we can really say the members, they always get the best deal in any city they stay at. There's no doubt, no doubt to
yeah.
that.
Yeah. Lucas, if we look at travel as a whole, again, you don't need to be an absolute scientist to predict that it's probably going to change, and there's going to be some effects, whether it's the whole idea of hygiene and so on and so forth. Very little, in my opinion, has been said, and I was curious to ask this question because of your knowledge about the revenue and the markets. How much of a factor is this whole hygiene topic going to be, specifically in relation to the booking and the revenue? And the reason I'm asking is because I've heard from many people now, and from hoteliers as well, who have said, to the point where we've actually added entire hygiene concepts to our online marketing, whether it's the website or social media or whatever, to prove that we're doing everything we can to keep our guests safe and to provide that. Now I realize you're probably obviously in talks with your marketing department, but you're probably not in the marketing strategies to 100%. But is that something that we're going to see and continue to see, this whole idea of hygiene, or is it something that as soon as we have a vaccine, people are going to travel again and are not really going to care so much about the whole hygiene topic anymore?
No, definitely. I mean, this is something that we are incorporating, uh, and we focus on a lot, and also in our communications. This is the key element that we increased. I mean, not saying that it was not good before, but we increased focus on hygiene, on disinfecting everything, on amenities in the room, and how that will be cleaned, staff safety, all those kind of things. They're covered now, and there's a lot of focus on that. I'm sure that will stay in place for the next
Yeah.
1, 2, 3 years for sure.
Yeah, and if we stick with the hygiene topic and looking at the whole idea of traveling, Lucas, obviously it's vital for your business and your teams in the revenue management that people travel again, because it's ultimately what fills the accommodation and the beds, the rooms, the bedrooms of the houses. Give me your prediction on that. Are we still going to see a recovery of travel, let's say the end of this year, in your very honest opinion, or is it really going to take until early next year, until we have a vaccine, until people really feel safe again?
From a Soho House perspective, definitely. I can see that already with, for example, Mykonos, Miami, all those resort locations, or even the farmhouse or Babington House here in the UK. I mean, we already see a massive rebound. I mean, our weekends are already full. It's insane. Never have expected that. So definitely people will travel. What I think personally is that people will not travel to a 400-room hotel in any beach location, for example. I think people will rather stay in a smaller property, where there's more control over the environment, over the hygiene measures, and so on and so on. But yeah, I mean, for us, already huge rebound, which is great to see.
Yeah. Yeah. And Lucas, if you look at the situations across the various different countries, how difficult right now is it to be the head of revenue management for a company that operates in, how many countries do you guys operate in?
Oh God,
see,
more than 10.
I'm coming prepared with the right questions here. More than 10. Okay,
Here we go.
So let's just say with more than 10 countries, because I imagine your revenue management right now between Miami and what's east? Istanbul, Mumbai. Yeah, there we go. Must be dramatically different, no?
Yeah. It's very. It's completely. It's the opposite sometimes. Yeah. What should I say? It's tricky, but that what keeps me up every day and keeps me busy, right?
Yeah.
But again,
Can you
this is what makes
Can
it
you explain
interesting.
one or two differences between, for example, Mumbai and Miami?
Well, Miami, the government is very. How do you say? Not very clear on what is allowed and what is not allowed. That was always a challenge to find out, how many rooms are we actually allowed to open? Can we open the whole hotel, or can we open only half of it? Do we need to keep the rooms free after a guest checks out? Can we do housekeeping? Can we service the rooms, and so on and so on? And for example, Mumbai, it's pretty clear. It's just closed. So yeah. But again, I mean, it's hard to keep track of, really.
And the countries, how have your experiences with the countries and the legislations been? I imagine you've seen some massive differences as to how a certain country communicated their rules and regulations for Corona times.
Yeah, I mean, Europe was pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
What needs to happen? The UK was a bit different. The US, it was clear at one point what needs to happen. Now the reopening and the phases is a bit more of a challenging topic. But yeah, in the end, honestly, you don't know in the morning what's going to happen in the afternoon. Well, pre-corona, really.
Yeah, seems to be a growing trend. Yeah.
Lucas, I mean, as we just heard, you have incredible amounts of responsibility to lead the whole revenue strategy for a famous chain like Soho House. But you've graduated from Lausanne in 2015. How did you manage to, accelerate your career from graduating EHL to becoming head of revenue at Soho House in just 5 years?
Tell us the secret, man.
Oh
Yeah,
God, I wish. I never
Fritz
really
and
think
myself,
about
we
that,
just
to be
started
honest.
our own companies.
I have to say, I was lucky with the people I've met, I guess, and the experience I had. I mean, I was very much exposed into the strategy of the whole commercial management, the Dorchester connection, which was a really great learning experience. From there, quite frankly, I probably got there because I was, again, my experience was not was limited to a certain extent, because you start with a fresh mind. You don't come with those concepts in head that things need to be a certain way. Well, you adapt it to the current business that you're in, and I think that's what helped me, just having an open mind, and yeah, and just take things as they are, be very flexible, I guess. And
So
I have to
that's what you
say, I
would.
mean, yeah, sorry, I mean, I really have to say, I mean, this doesn't come uh, just from myself. I mean, I have an amazing team in all the houses that really took that to the next level. I mean, I spent so much time with them on the phone, traveling, training them, working with them mainly. And it's a joint effort. It always is, really, I have to say.
So
I
that
can
would
hear
be
this. I
your
can hear the
one piece
Swiss
of advice.
modesty. I can hear the
No, but
Swiss
it's true.
modesty. Can you hear the
No,
Swiss
it's really,
modesty
it's
flow?
really,
I
really
can hear a
true.
little bit of.
No,
How
it's
easy,
really
Lucas? Let me let,
yeah.
let me ask this though. From seeing as the three of us are all roughly the same age, so I can ask this quite freely. I imagine that you must have at some point, especially in your Soho House now, your latest Soho House experiences. I'm sure there's been times where you being the age that you are with the late 20s. Um, is it always easy to act out your authority in a role that you've been put into? And the fact that you've gotten to where you are clearly proves that you must be very good at your job, otherwise you wouldn't be there. All Swiss modesty apart, but how
Thank
easy
you.
is it to be is how easy is it to be there? And I don't want, this age discussion is well overtaken and should be done with the past, but I imagine it's still a thing when somebody takes the trip in a such a, as Flo said, such a prominent
Mm,
niche product such as Soho House.
yeah, it was not that easy, to be honest. It probably helped that I have a lot of gray hair already, always had, so people always thought I'm a little bit older. But
Yeah,
it was, yeah, initially it's a challenge, because you need to literally talk to GMs and tell them how they should do certain things, or you suggest how they do certain things, right? And they have 20 years of experience, right? And why would they listen to you now, right?
yeah.
Um, I
So
think it comes down to human skills as well. In how you speak to them, how you treat them, how you behave. It's really, I think it's really that simple.
yeah,
And I think I managed that quite well to build those relationships. And again, if you start something like that, you cannot be arrogant. You need to come completely humble, and really just, yeah, basically need to show them that you can do the job as well, and then they will respect you. Otherwise, they will not respect you.
yeah. Um, if you look at the journey that you've taken now, Lucas, give me one story from a revenue management perspective, and it doesn't. I don't want you to name the employer because nobody listens to this podcast, but we don't want to get in trouble even more than we already are, anyways. Usually, but give me one story that really had you shake your head when somebody did something specifically in relation to revenue management, or I don't know, you witnessed a competitor doing something where you thought, oh my God, you guys are not particularly intelligent.
Oh wow, well, so many stories. I could write a book about it.
I would imagine so, yeah.
Um, well, again, it's not stupidity, right? It's just different perspectives, I guess, and
There comes the
different.
Swiss. That's the Swiss way of saying you're
Again,
not
right?
you're not
Oh,
dumb. You're just
God.
different. It's very.
No, I think we started when I started. We changed the whole strategy for all the houses, and then at one point the conversation came up to have flat rates again. One rate for the whole year per site, and it took
Oh,
literally 4 to 5 months of fight to get that out. And we had to trial. We even put properties on a flat rate for a whole year. Well, not a whole year, but 365 forward, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
really,
yeah.
we had to
Yeah.
show them how much money you actually lose. And this is and how much less occupancy. It's not even about the profit you make. It's really not about that. It's about you cannot fill your rooms anymore.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and that was a challenging year. I think I got grayer during those few months as well. But in the end, again, it's a challenge, right? You need to again, you need to think outside of the box and just how the hell am I going to prove this to them now that this will not work, or it's
Yeah.
not. It's not just not realistic.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was challenge.
That was a challenge, yeah, I'd imagine. Lucas, I spoke to someone before we did the recording with you, and who runs a hotel, small family property, nothing in volume compared to Soho, but he had a very interesting question that I did want to pass along, and he said to me, I'd be very curious to hear what a day in the life of a revenue manager currently looks like. Would you mind just running us through your day? I mean, I imagine Microsoft Teams or Zoom, or are we even allowed to say these names? I don't know. We have to check if we're even allowed to say that. But I
You'll
imagine the
hear
whole
after.
video call.
Maybe we
Yeah,
can get a sponsoring deal.
there we go. Now we're talking. I imagine a lot of that is part of your day. But what do you? I mean, is there much to compare? For example, in the houses that are closed at the moment, do you prepare? Do you start simulating for the next year already? Can you run us through what your day looks like at the moment?
Well, at the moment, my day is really, really different. I mean, usually a usual day for me, I get the pickups from all the sites. I look at them quickly, scan through them. Okay, it's all going well or not. Then you look into more details. I check most quickly, just check all the reports that I get from all the sites. Um, that's kind of like a usual day for me in terms of what revenue
Yeah.
management on the revenue management side. And then plenty of meetings with different departments and just a lot of there's a lot of collaboration. We have so many different departments that we need to work with right now. However, um, just checking the news helps in the morning to see where we stand. I mean, if there's any news from, I don't know, Spain or whatever. And then I look into the sites that are open, see if there's any change, if there's any movement, and then usually have a quick chat with the reservation managers on property, just to catch up and follow up, like how things are going, if they get more inquiries, just to kind of like feel a little bit where they stand and where they go. And to be fair, we work on a lot of other projects now, that we didn't have time to work on before, and now we actually have time to
Aha.
do so, which is also great.
Okay. Okay.
A little
Yep.
bit
So
more,
you're moving. You're
focus
pulling
looking.
forwards. You're pulling forward some of the things that previously you didn't have time for, or that didn't fit into the schedule. You're moving them now
Absolutely.
to. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Lucas, I have one more for you. Tell me about OTAs. I realize that traditionally Soho House has had a slightly different approach to the whole OTA scenario than maybe, some other hotels would have, or some other classic hotel properties would have carried out, that would have been in similar locations as yours, which are, for the most part downtown in the cities where you are. Can you give me an opinion on the way that I mean, maybe also for those that don't know the way that you guys work with OTAs, or don't work with OTAs, should I say, and why you think for your specific example that tends to work quite well.
So generally, we do not work with any OTA. We don't pay commission to travel agents and so on. We have, of course, a few selected agents we work with. We also work with OTAs in a few of our sites. That's usually really demographically dependent. But generally, we do not work with any external party on to fill our rooms. Saying that, it was quite a shock when I started because how do you expect me to fill your hotels, right? But it
Yeah.
works. Again, this is the beauty of Soho House, or if you should take Soho House aside, of boutique hotels. If you have a special product that is that doesn't require that much volume, you will most likely be able to fill that, and Soho House definitely is able to do so. Um, in the end, a few sites we had to consider to open OTAs, especially now, for example, we might need to switch it on for a few sites. We don't know, right? In the
Yeah,
end, it comes to the cost aspect, right? You pay an OTA, I don't know, 15-20%, whatever it is. How much would that cost? How much would the cost be to get the client on another channel? Right? If you would think
yeah,
about that, and we did a lot of calculations. If you have a whole sales team, um, that is probably more expensive than just getting it on Booking.com, Expedia, and so on, because there you know your cost. It's pretty straightforward. And there's not a lot of maintenance to it. There's no retention schemes, no bonuses, and so on. Um, Traditionally, if I would work for a traditional company, part of the business mix, you need it. You can't not have it.
yeah.
For small companies, boutique hotels, so house, yes, for some sites you might need it depending on the market. But generally, yeah, it's all those discussions, this is OTA evil and so on. Well, yeah, I think that would be another podcast really, but I mean that's a long discussion.
No, but wait a minute. I can't let you say that and then not ask a follow up question. So give me your opinion, because there's so much going on in this whole discussion, and I
Yeah.
completely agree with you. We've already been talking 45 minutes or even longer, so we can't roll out the whole shebang, right? But give me your opinion. There's so much there at the moment, Lucas. Of
Mm.
there's an entire organization of German hoteliers now that are suing Booking.com. HRS, Booking.com, and Expedia are saying, well, it's not easy for us either, which is fair enough, I guess. I'm not even going to ask you who's right and who's wrong, because we would probably get a lot of emails after this podcast. But what is your opinion on this? Because you can't tell me that this hardcore dislike that both parties seem to have for each other sometimes is the ultimate way forward.
Good question. I mean, yeah, putting me in a corner, but no, no, I agree. It really depends what kind of hotel you're running. Um, you know, OTA can be very, very helpful for you. I mean, there's hotels that only sell on OTAs,
Yeah,
and they fill and they fill their rooms first of all, right? Occupancy, but they also make more profit in the end because they know their cost. They know the
yeah,
exact cost attribution. Yeah, of course, you can go without OTA. Go and try it. Do it. If you can displace the business that you lose through OTAs, fine, fair, do it. But I bet 80-90% of hotels are not able to do that.
yeah,
They just don't have the capabilities and the outreach. I mean, if you look, for example, um, a Dutch OTA company, right? I mean, the money they put behind marketing, it's insane, absolutely
yeah.
insane. You will never be able to have that budget and generate that business. So yeah, if you can fill your rooms without, well, go for it, do it, try it, turn it off,
But
try.
so you guys, how do you measure your cost of distribution for your bedrooms? I mean, is it part of one big pot for the marketing, which you do for Soho House in general? Or do you have special budgets which are just allocated to promote the hotel, the bedroom part of it? Or can you actually really differentiate both? And what is your distribution mix? You say you're not selling on OTA, so big percentage of memberships. How do you, is it everything direct via the website, the rest, or how does that work?
I mean, to your first question, we have specific budgets for marketing. We had that since a few months now, where we try to get more business in. But what you need to look at, if you have hotel rooms with sorry, if you work for a private members club with bedrooms, your main focus is not necessarily rooms revenue. It's more the additional revenue that the guest will spend in the as a whole, right? They will go to the club, they have a drink at the bar, they go to the spa, they have a gym class, they will in the restaurant. All of that is actually much more important than just specifically targeting rooms. So our marketing is really focused on whole experience. It's a holistic experience. If you stay in, let's say, in Berlin, I mean, you guys been there. You have the rooftop, you have the cowshed, you have a Chiconies, you have the club, you might have a party, you have the cinema. I mean, it's more, the focus is more on overall spend rather than just rooms. So that's also the marketing strategy.
It's actually a funny story. The Fritz and I had our discussion at Soho House upstairs in the seventh floor, talking about
Starting
creating
Smack.
Smack.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
really?
it actually, that
See,
creativity happened
creativity.
at Soho House. So
Yeah,
no, but
that's very true.
from my side, one last question is, I mean, you guys totally depend on the membership revenues, of course, which is a huge part of
Yep.
your business. And you were able to push through saying, okay, we have to close the houses, but please, we will continue to that you guys pay your membership and you guys can then spend it on consumption, which is a super good and smart way of doing it. What was the reaction of the members in general? And did you guys worry a bit in the case that you would not be able to do that? Yeah, how successful was that strategy on keeping the revenues alive?
Yeah, it was successful. The feedback from the members was as well positive on that. Because in the end, it's with this you're saving jobs, right? If this is the cash flow. If you don't have cash flow, you cannot pay wages, and we need to close the houses for good, right?
Yeah.
So it was very well received, I have to say. And if you think about it, it's a good deal. Okay, you cannot use the house for 2 or 3 months and so on, but you can come back and get something back for that. And we really try to make those things very attractive. That there's not, the margins are very, very, very small, right? And this is the strategy really as well. To be generous, to give something, to give you value for to give you value for a membership, and to stay a member with us, because that is, yeah, again, that is the future of the company. The company depends on that. Yeah.
Lucas, before we let you go, and before we have our little end of podcast tradition, and ask you three very short questions, let me just come back to two more things that you mentioned throughout the podcast. First of all, is it fair, just to make sure that we don't get all these emails from the hoteliers, is it fair to say in this whole hotelier discussion that in some ways, and you mentioned the word transparency right at the beginning of your of the podcast episode, is it fair to say that a little bit more transparency from the OTA side, let's say, wouldn't hurt the business?
Absolutely. We selectively work with OTAs that we know that are transparent and they don't do shady deals under the table. We do not work with anyone that is not fully transparent. And I 100% agree with you. If this industry would be more transparent, yeah, there would be the barrier would be smaller, to
Between the
work
two
with them.
parties. Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah, agreed. Yeah, and then let me throw one last very, very, very unpredictable question out there.
Uh-oh.
Give me an idea. Give me an idea. 2 or 3, or maybe let's say 4 years from now, what is the Soho House landscape looking like in 2 or 3 years from now? First of all, from a revenue management point of side, but also from a business point. Is the membership still going to be the number one criteria? Is there maybe a shift towards accommodation a little bit more? What's your take on those two?
Accommodation will definitely be playing a role in that. But membership will always be the driving force behind Soho House. I'm convinced, and this is where we're moving to. Soho House will be very big, very soon, even bigger,
Okay. Even
taking
bigger
over the
than it
world.
already is.
Yes.
Okay, all right. Lucas, we have a tradition. We have a tradition on this podcast. At the end of every episode, I will ask you three short questions with the request for short-ish answers. We used to say short answers or one-word answers. We always got 16 sentences, so we've now gotten a little bit more lenient, and we say short-ish answers. So
Okay.
if you don't mind bearing with me, Lucas, my favorite part about hospitality is
The people.
All right. The
Short
last
That was short.
that was short. We can work with that. Yes. The last trip I took was, might I add, leisure, not for business. Where was that last trip to?
Trip I took.
If you can still remember.
If you can
Oh
still
my
remember
God.
pre-corona, yeah.
Wow. Where did I go? Switzerland. Yes, I went home to Zurich. That was the last one.
And what was particularly memorable about that journey?
People with masks. That was like, wow, it already started. So I was very very surprised.
Right? At the
Different
beginning, that was
reality.
quite weird to get your head
Yeah,
around, no?
very,
Or was it just for
very,
me?
very.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
I'm like, wow, what is wrong with those people? I was like, okay,
Yeah.
now I understand.
It makes a whole lot more sense now. Yeah, agreed. And then the last question, Lucas, is the next big thing in hospitality will be?
Oof. Also, house, of course. No, kidding. Oh my God, no idea. The next big thing.
Unfortunately, no idea is not a valid answer. It's when the computer program tells you this is a required field. That's kind
The
of
required field with a star, right?
Yep.
The next big thing, definitely a shift in business travel. I think this is the next. Well, I don't know if that's a positive thing, but the demographics and the landscape is changing and is going to change, and the way people select their hotels and their travel. And I think that puts a lot of focus on how companies market themselves. Yeah.
Wonderful. Lucas, it's been great to have you on the show. It's been great to reconnect with you. All the best to you and
Thank you very
Soho
much.
House, and we'll see you
Pleasure.
soon.
Thank you,
too, for
Lucas.
having me. Pleasure.
That's it for this episode, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. As always, don't forget to check out what there is to know about Smack at smack.media or on our YouTube, LinkedIn, Instagram, or Facebook accounts. We'll see you next time.